Welcome to season 2 of the Get Set podcast, an old girls entertainment production. We're so excited to be here and talking about our experiences as 3 women in the TV and film industry. Today it is just me, Monique, but I have a wonderful, wonderful guest with me today. She is a dear friend and someone I immensely look up to professionally and personally. She's an acting and audition coach and script consultant. We have Lilach Mendelovich here with us.
Hi, I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
And if you've been listening to the podcast, you've actually already heard from Lilach because she gave us the ins and outs of why the writers and the actors were on strike, or it was a bonus episode. But now we're back and she gets to tell us all about who she is, how she started in this industry, and how amazing she is as a coach. So yeah, let's start off first with how you got into the industry in general. Where did you start and how has this path led you to being a kick-ass audition and acting coach?
Lovely. So I started out as an actor and I went to UCLA Theater, Film, and Television for a theater major, majoring in acting and directing. I did kind of like a double emphasis. And so I started out as an actor and tried to make it work in the business. And I was struggling a lot with auditioning because I didn't audition very often. So when an audition came around, it was this like huge thing and it was so nerve-wracking. And even though I was just like killing it in class and doing amazing work and I knew that I was good, it just, those auditions were such a pitfall for me that I was like, okay, I'm going to learn everything I can about auditions and master this hurdle for myself. And so I took classes with Wendy Davis at Acting Pros, and that's where I met Monique.
Yes.
And that's where my journey sort of to coaching started, because as I was taking this class and sort of growing leaps and bounds, Wendy was looking for somebody to come and help her expand and be a teacher. So she saw me sort of helping my classmates with stuff. And she's like, you got an eye for this. You should come and teach with me. And that was a huge vote of confidence and pushed me in that direction. And it was funny that when I started teaching and coaching, I was like, oh, I've done this before, because when I was majoring in directing, most of my work was assistant directing the grad students at UCLA. And most of my work ended up taking the actors that were struggling with something aside, because the director didn't have time to work with them on their own. And they're like, can you take them and work on this scene or work on this part or work on this thing that they're struggling with? So I did that all through college, just working with people one-on-one and fine-tuning their performance to the point that they felt really comfortable and the director was happy and then everybody was happy. So when I started teaching and coaching, I was like, oh, wait, I've done this before and I was really good at it. This all makes sense now. And so I was able to take my experience as an actor, my experience as a coach and a director, and then also I entered at a few casting offices throughout the years and was a reader on some big projects and had some writing experiences of my own. So it was sort of like tried a bunch of different hats.
That all came in and really helped you with this currently.
Yes, exactly. So it's almost all conglomerated into, now I have this very 360 view of the industry, but specifically of the audition process, because you do need to understand both writing, casting, acting, directing. You need to kind of understand all of that to be a good audition coach and to help people through that particular part of the process of acting. Because you know how to act doesn't mean you know how to audition. It's a totally different animal. So most of my work focuses now on well-trained actors like you who came out of, when we met, you came out of your college program.
Yep.
So you were very well-trained, but the audition part of it, especially for film and TV specifically, wasn't a muscle that you had practiced.
Oh my God, it was mind-blowing.
Mm-hmm.
It was absolutely mind-blowing. And I had been to another class before I found you guys. And it was so kind of devastating because, you're spending money, you go there, and again, not to toot my own horn, but I'd get up there and the teacher wouldn't be able to give me notes. He's like, oh yeah, that was good. Like, let's just try it again. Try something different. No specificity, not grounded in the script at all. And then my cohort that was in the class with me, just wasn't, it was different. Like going from a BFA where it's like, we wouldn't dare be 1 minute late.
Mm-hmm.
Like we would never dare, or we wouldn't be let into class. And these people would be showing up 20 minutes late, be showing up hungover. And I was just like, what is happening? And then I found you guys because on LA Casting, I was just like at my wit's end. Everyone was asking me where I was training. I was like, I just got my BFA. What are you talking about? And so I'm like,
that's a whole other thing we should get into, especially if a lot of the people listening are newer actors, especially whether they coming from high school, coming from college, coming from like, you know, wanting to get into the industry, especially those of us who have had a lot of training in some program before. There's a misconception that, okay, I've done my training, I'm ready to work.
Right.
I don't need to be in class right now. And that is like the biggest pitfall and the biggest misconception that you can have, because not only is acting a muscle, so you have to keep going to the gym and you can always get better and learn more and more things. So it's something that's good for you and your craft, but also casting, when you're a new actor, they don't need to see a lot of credits on your resume, but they are looking at that training and they're looking that you're actively training somewhere, that you're studying somewhere.
They ask me that every time.
Yeah.
Every audition, they're like, okay, great, you got this, you did this, where are you currently training? And then I would blank and I'm like, oh, well, I'm looking for a class. And so when I found you guys on LA Casting. I think you guys had like hey, we'll teach you like a little bit of our technique. And then just in that one session alone, I was blown away. I went to class, I was blown away because you had a system and you had a structure and it was based on the words on the page. And it was a system that I could model for every audition I got, whether it was 1 line or 5 pages. So yeah, whatever you're willing to share about your process and how you coach, that I think it's so beneficial. It really worked for me. I'm so grateful that I found you.
Yeah, I mean, it worked for me too. That's why I keep teaching it. And I've sort of taken that. I mean, Wendy's not running her school anymore. Now I'm working independently, but I've taught at a few different studios around town. Taught at the SAG-AFTRA Summer Intensive for the SAG-AFTRA Foundation. So I've had, a lot of stuff around town. And so during COVID, I decided that it's time because I could do everything online. And I was like, I'll just do things by myself, because it was very cumbersome to work with a whole studio, especially while they were just reeling from COVID. It was easier for me to just go on my own. But I took the work that we had done at Acting Pros, which was very, very focused on audition technique, and then added to that my own specialties of script analysis and comedy. So those are the 2 things that I've always been very good at, somewhat naturally and somewhat from just a lot of experience, both writing, being a script consultant, all that kind of stuff. I can see the writer's perspective or what their intention is in the script. And so I have clients that don't even come to me for coaching. They're like, I just want you to help me break down the script and I'll do the rest on my own. So sometimes people come to me purely for script analysis. And that kept happening. So at some point I was like, I should make a class about this, because everybody always asks me, like, how do you see all these things on the page? And so I created this class I really like. It's called Script Detective, because you get to sort of detect the script.
And that's literally what she does. You can have 5 words on the page and she'll be like, okay, well, what does this word mean? Okay, what does this word mean? And I'm just like, I never would have gotten that. And so the way you mine for things in the script is incredible.
And I'm only harping on that, especially for, like I said, for people who have had some experience acting before and they feel like they have at least some grasp, like they feel like, oh, I'm a decent actor, I'm a good actor. To go from that to auditioning, right? Specifically because when you're in a play, when you're on set, you have the director to talk to, you have sometimes the writer, if you're on a TV show set, like to talk to ask questions about the script, to come up with your vision together. When you're auditioning, it's just you and a piece of paper. And if you don't align with the vision that the creative team has for this project, then your audition won't be bookable. And that's sort of my focus. And I know we've talked about this before, that there's, especially for people looking for classes like you had been, there are a lot of red flags out there. And one of the biggest ones is anybody that guarantees a booking, because that's something even the best teacher in all the land cannot guarantee you that you'll book a specific project.
100%.
Yeah, it's like the biggest red flag in our industry for people who are starting out. If somebody says I can guarantee you a booking or something like that, run far, far away.
False.
Yeah. But good teachers, good coaches that you click with can guarantee that your auditions will be bookable, meaning that the work that you're doing is strong enough and consistent enough that even if you don't book that particular job, those who watch that audition will say, that's a great audition, that's a great actor. We'll keep them in mind for other things. Mm-hmm. So you're starting to create momentum and you're starting to create fans in these rooms that are looking for actors. And that's when it becomes a matter of when you book a job rather than if, even though they can't guarantee which one. We've seen this over and over again when you do the work and you're doing it consistently.
So many times actors will say, like, I went into this room 5, 6, 7 times before they booked me. And it's just like, yeah, every time you're creating that history, you're creating that you're consistent, you bring in good work. And like you said, yeah, you're a bookable creative person that they can rely on to do the work.
And having that confidence is a huge part of it, So that's sort of my bread and butter is helping well-trained actors have the confidence that they're creating a bookable audition every single time. Because when we don't, there's so much, mindset stuff to this business too. And when we don't have that confidence, then we get into like what I like to call the stressing, obsessing, and second guessing.
That's so good. That's so accurate.
I've just seen so many people who are fantastic actors and they come to me and they're just like, I hate auditioning and everything is so stressful and painful, the whole process. And if we can make it a little bit more fun and a little bit more creative and instill that confidence that they know that they're on the right track, that changes the whole thing. And the energy you bring to the take at that point also changes and makes it so much easier for people to trust that you know what you're doing. So to me, in my philosophy, that all starts with script analysis because you can't have confidence in your choices if you're just driving around in the dark without navigation.
Right.
And so my biggest tip I would say for your listeners around that is more of like a perspective shift, that it's not about the actors who adhere to the script word for word, and it's not about the actors who kind of do their own version of the script completely. The people that are the most bookable are the ones who find this like very harmonious marriage between the intention that the writer's artistry and what they put on the page and their own artistry and their own point of view and life experiences, and marry those together and find a really harmonious balance. So you need both. And what I see a lot with actors is people leaning one way or the other, very extremely. So my philosophy is all about trying to bridge that gap. And the best way to do that, in my opinion, is my favorite metaphor. I do a lot of metaphors and analogies, so bear with me. But my favorite metaphor for that is that the writer is the architect and builder of the house that is your scene or your audition, and you are the interior decorator. You, the actor, come into this structure that is sound and beautiful, and you get to paint the walls whatever color you want. You get to put whatever flooring you want. You get to decorate and put chandeliers if you want, whatever you want. The only thing you cannot do is punch a hole in the wall or cave in the ceiling. You cannot harm the structure that you are inside of, because then the whole thing will just fall on top of you. So understanding the difference between what is a wall and what is paint is the critical thing, where you can say, okay, this I have to be very truthful to the script in. I cannot change things here. This is like a tentpole of the scene that I cannot move. But here on this other side, this is paint. This is like, I can decide if I want to go green, black, blue. If I want to, throw a chandelier on the ceiling, I can do that. I have freedom now to play in the space that I know where I'm not going to harm the structure. So that difference is sort of the key to script analysis, in my opinion, and something that a lot of newer actors are missing.
Yeah, I got chills when you were talking. Because, it makes so much sense. It makes so much sense. How So if someone's, what other pitfalls do you see for people when they're going with audition techniques? So script analysis is huge when they're especially when we don't always get to go in the room for feedback and it is all self tapes. What are some of the pitfalls there that you've seen with clients?
With self tapes, so for people who've been auditioning for a long time, it was more the lack of feedback and sort of connection, where again it was just them and the page and the camera, and they felt like they were guessing at what they were doing instead of getting some sort of guidance. And so that's where I think script analysis is very helpful, because once you know how to do that well, you don't need a lot of outside guidance, and at least you'll know that, again, that the audition is bookable. And I'm going to give another definition of what that means, because what I see a lot is the most bookable actors are the most adjustable.
Yes.
So, and this should be a huge sigh of relief to everybody, because this is what I mean by that you don't need to be perfect. You don't need to hit every single thing. You don't need to have the best audition that's ever happened. You just need to have it be strong enough and have the fundamentals figured out, so that if you're a bit off, if something in the tone or something in your choices doesn't quite align, then the casting director or the director, if you're in director session, can give you, like, in one sentence or two, a very quick adjustment, and then you'll be on the right track, right? For example, if the tone is wrong and you're like, oh, you know what, this is more of like a dramedy rather than a full-on drama, so, you know, feel free to lighten it up a little bit. And that's the only note they need to give you. Fantastic. Super adjustable. They say, oh, you know, yes, she's your sister and you love her, but you guys are kind of estranged, so just take that into consideration. Super adjustable, like something like that. If there's some really complicated fundamental thing to the scene that you just don't get, and it's going to take them a whole 5 minutes to explain it to you, that's no longer an adjustable audition, meaning they're just going to move on to the other person because it's just too much work to get you there. Meaning that if we're doing script analysis well, then hopefully we have all the fundamentals figured out, and then it's just choices that are those paint things, right? Like those things that are more creative choices of the actor, and then those are very adjustable. Those are easily adjustable by casting. And also, if you're doing script analysis well, you've already thought about a few other options of where the script could go, and so you're a lot more prepared for that readjustment.
That's what I found was really eye-opening about your process as well, and the way that you teach, is that the more we get into specifics and the more we hone in on, you know, what's on the page and what are those walls and what is, you know, could just be paint, like you said, it actually doesn't limit you. It's definitely more freeing, because then I'm never going into the audition with one option. I'm going in with my strongest option, because I've already worked A, B, and C, and I have B and C in my back pocket that are still aligned with the script. But if they say something off the top of their head, I can be like, okay, I'm going to pull this from option A, pull this from option C, and that could give them what they want.
Right. And if you came from theater, we kind of go through that process in rehearsal, but we have a lot more time to try things, to try different versions, and then come up with the strongest one. When you're auditioning, you only have like a day or two to put it all together by yourself and hope, fingers crossed, that you're right. But if you're focusing on being bookable, meaning being strong and adjustable, then you don't need to be right. You just need to honor what's on the page and then bring your own perspective to it. And so I think that lack of guidance from casting has been throwing a lot of people for a loop. But hopefully, if you have the technique, then you don't have to worry about that quite so much, because you know you have the certainty that whatever you bring to the table is going to be strong enough to be adjustable and to be bookable. So that if you're right for it, for like the things that you can't control, right? Like if the role didn't get written out, or you know, all these other things, then you're definitely going to get that callback or get the opportunity to make that adjustment if you need to. And the other thing is just like all the tech, right? Like being a one person production crew is tough, and that's something that it is tough. But it is repetition. Again, like once you have your own setup figured out, or you have your people that you go to, your reader that you trust, then it just becomes kind of like, all right, it's a well-oiled machine. We've done it. So people were struggling with that a lot more at the beginning of the pandemic than they are now. But just wrapping up on the point about the choices in the auditions. And I want to just touch back on something that you said about it being freeing. And that's something that I believe truly is that technique is meant to set you free. Just like memorizing is something very technical that we do, but we memorize our lines in order to forget them.
Yep.
We memorize so that we can just be in the moment and not even have to think about it. And so a lot of technique, like script analysis, like audition technique, like comedic technique, all those kind of things that feel a little nitpicky at the time, if we master them, then you don't have to think about them ever again. And then you can just be free, and you can trust that all the work that you've done is going to be there and you don't need to worry about it. So I do know that there's been more of a shift in, especially in LA, I don't know how it is maybe in New York or other places, but into less technique and more just feeling and being yourself in the scene.
Oh, I cannot do that. That's a no for me. I have to do the technique. I have to do that work first, or I'm just lost in space.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that it's great. I've taught at a studio that does a lot of that work, and I do think it's important. But a lot of those studios don't explain the process, because it is an audition process, right? So they don't explain where this comes in the process. This should be at the very end of the process, right? Technique comes first, like script analysis, understanding, making choices, all that kind of stuff. And then the whole bringing yourself to it and just being present in the moment and just feeling your way through, that's sort of like the step you do when you're ready to put it up on its feet and do all that stuff. Because I do see a lot of well-trained actors who don't know how to bring their own unique flair and flavor to something. And so that kind of work can really help them make it their own.
Or they're so focused on the technique that they're like, okay, I know I have to hit this beat and I know I have to pause here.
They can't be present.
Exactly. So at the end, you kind of have to, put that all together in a seamless way.
Yeah. So I do think there's a lot of value in that whole learn how to be yourself and bring yourself to the work mentality and that kind of philosophy of acting. But personally, I feel like it does a disservice to newer actors, because you do need some kind of technique first, and then you put that on top. So I wouldn't start there if I was a newer actor. I would go make sure that I have the basic tools of like scene study classes, script analysis classes, like that kind of stuff. And then once you feel good with that, then you can put that work on top. And I just see a lot of people who go, that's all of their training is that work. And then they'll have this amazing, beautiful, connected audition, but they're in a completely different planet than the rest of the production. So it just, like when we talk about being adjustable, when it feels like you're in completely different movie than everybody else, that is too many things to adjust. And then they might just go on to the next person. So it's like the balance of technique is just as important. I just seen that being a little, technique gets a bad rap.
It's so important. Yeah, no. Speaking to what you said too, I did a self-tape and I was, only given one scene. I was called back. They gave us the full script because it was, it was just a short film. And I read the script and I was like, holy fuck, that choice was wrong. And so wrong. But, I got the call back and I got in the room and they're just like, yeah, let's just adjust this one thing. We feel like you'll be fine. And then so I was able to get that opportunity. Thankfully, somewhere in my audition, they figured I think, she's just missing this one part. Let's, it's workable. And so stuff like that happens. It was something that I never would have known from these 2 pages. It's like where this character goes at the end of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like you said, being flexible, having the technique to be flexible. And then, in the moment, just, letting go.
Totally. And part of it is, it's funny, going back to the script analysis thing, is just also knowing how to deal with scripts. Not that this was a badly written script what you auditioned for, but speaking of short films and indie films and things that are, the filmmakers and the writers themselves are green as well. It's a lot harder for an actor to do a great job with a not great script. And so understanding how to break down great scripts really helps you in your choices with writing that's not quite as good. And the thing is with great scripts, like my husband always jokes that he can't really, we had to institute a no spoiler rule when we watch movies and TV together, because I can always tell where the story's going, like, 15 minutes into the story or the episode, because I've read so many scripts and I know where the patterns are. And so usually when I read 2 pages, I 90% of the time can tell you what that last thing was going to be. Not every time, but 90% of the time.
I believe it. You're a genius.
But it is something that can be taught, right? Like it's partially, it's just noticing the patterns and seeing things that is just practice and repetition. And that was going to be my last note to newer actors who feel maybe they have their own strengths and then maybe they have things that they know they struggle with, is something that took me a long time to learn. You could probably speak to this as well, is that every single thing in acting, even if things you don't think are like that, single thing in acting is a muscle. Your emotional capacity is a muscle. Your ability to memorize is a muscle. Your ability to connect and be present is a muscle. Literally everything about acting is a muscle. So you can learn it, you can improve it, you can practice, you can get better and strengthen that muscle over time. So the idea of talent is one of those kind of misnomers, I feel like, as well, because yes, talent is what you naturally just are inclined to, that you might be really good at and you have a tendency towards. Like I've always had a talent for comedy. I've always had talent for script analysis, but I end up where I am now because I break down like 5 scripts a day. So
absolutely.
Just working with different clients. So I wouldn't have the knowledge that I have now without that repetition and building that muscle. So talent can only take you so far. And the rest of it is going to the gym.
Yes. So, and you give away so many free tips, not only about the industry, you're telling me a lot about the industry. I feel like I'm learning from you all the time, but also audition tips and audition technique tips online. On Instagram at Audition Coach Lilach.
Yes. There's an H at the end. So
yes. LILACH. And we're going to link it below. And you have a free self-tape guide also, right?
Yes. So that should be linked on my Instagram as well, like in the link in bio. So that's for those actors who are starting out and need to get their self-tape set up. So it's all the technical aspects and understanding the different frame rates, like when people say a medium shot or a close-up, or what that actually means, and all those technical things that somebody who's starting out would need to know and would be really helpful and take a lot of the stress out of it, so that you feel like you know what you need and what you're doing. And there's some links to products and cheap options so it doesn't cost you a ton of money. So that's what that guide is for.
That was one of the main things that I learned also, is how to scale my audition versus, when it's a medium and when it's a close-up. That was one of the main things that really changed, because I literally just got that note yesterday, even for a commercial audition. They're like, okay, this is great, you're in the right world, but we're going in really tight on you on this, and it's just a little too big. If you can, make it smaller. And so it's like, okay, well, what does smaller mean? Well, now I know what smaller means. And I know they didn't even have to say smaller. They literally just said, okay, we're going in tight on you. And I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah. If I move my head too much, half my cheek is out of frame, know? So that was helpful for me, definitely.
Yeah. There's so many things I feel like about acting that are also, speaking of that kind of note, that terms that get sort of thrown around, but nobody ever fully explains what they mean or how
just throw it away. How many times do you hear that? And it's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. Let's throw it away. And it's like, but practically, how do you go about doing that well, or what that means for that particular scene or for that particular character? Nobody explains that. Or when they say make a strong choice, but nobody ever explains like what it is or how to get there. So that, speaking of the Instagram, that's one of the things that, like, my mission on Instagram is to simplify and explain some of these like convoluted
it's like terms. You're decoding what people are saying. I'm like, oh, that's what they mean when they say that. Okay, thanks, Lilach.
I did have a couple of times where people were like, I've never heard that explained so simply. And at some point I realized that was a talent that I had to kind of simplify things for people in a way that was very actionable. And so that's something that I've tried to consistently do on the Instagram. So if you have one of those things that you're like, people say this all the time and I don't know what to do about it, then I probably have a video about it. So go find it.
Yeah, 99% of the time, I'm sure you have a video about it. And if not, you can message her, and I'm sure.
And I'll just make one.
Yeah,
there you go.
Perfect.
I'm always looking for ideas for new tips.
Something that, speaking of like getting into the nitty gritty, and there are like, there are a lot of good choices, but there could be some very, very off choices.
Mm-hmm.
Comedy is so specific. I've taken 2 of your comedy classes that were, again, eye-opening. Take us into your comedy world.
So I like to I'm going back to my analogies. So I like to compare dramatic acting to cooking and comedic acting to baking. So, if you're cooking, you can just like do a little stir fry. You just grab whatever's in the fridge. You can do a dash of this and a pinch of that. You don't have to be so accurate, as long as it makes sense together and it tastes good. Awesome. If you're baking, you have to be very, very precise, because if you don't hit the exact measurements, then your cake won't rise. And it's very similar in that way to comedic acting, because there is a lot more, back to that word, technique, and there's a lot more precision that has to be done, especially for things that are script-driven comedies. There are a few different kinds. There are character-driven comedies, there are situation-driven comedies, and then there are script-driven comedies. So some of those are more technical than others. Script-driven comedy is the most technical. That's where you really need to make sure that your rhythms are on point and that you're hitting those punchlines and that everything is working like clockwork. And those are when you don't really have as much freedom as the actor to change the way a line is said or the musicality of it, because it has to hit a certain rhythm. And a lot of people struggle with that, understanding the technique and understanding the precision, and then to find a way to make all of that very specific stuff, by the time you're taping your audition, feel like, oh, that's just how it happened to fall out of your mouth. Like, find the natural delivery of something that is so technical. And so my Find the Funny class is all about that. And that one is really about giving you all the tools. The level 1 is all about giving you the tools to find that funny, understand what is the humor that is driving the scene, what you need to do to make the jokes pop and land, all the different genres and kinds of comedy, and how to approach each of them differently, because they are very different and they have very different requirements as an actor. So it's a whole thing. And then my level 2 class is all about taking all that knowledge and all of that technique and then making sure that you are fully bringing it to life, making it your own. And we can't see all the work, right? Like, you can't see the acting. You can't see all the work that went into figuring out the technique. It just feels like it just happened to be so funny. So there's sort of 2 levels to the way that I teach this, because I feel like, again, you need a technique first, so then you can then trust that it's there, and then you can do your real creative in the moment stuff. And I guess the main thing with comedy is understanding those techniques and understanding the musicality is one of the most important stuff. So, and the beauty of having all of that is that all that technique is, then you can be like those people on the British Bake Off that are coming up with their own recipes, because they know so much about baking. They know how the cake rises and the science behind it. And so then they can be like, all right, I'm going to change this recipe. I'm going to throw some blueberries in here. I'm going to make this my own. Because the cake still rises.
Right. You know that flavor-wise it's going to work. You know that it's, you didn't use salt instead of sugar. And
right. and you know how to substitute something and make up for the substitution that you made, all that kind of stuff. So I know this is like getting all into the analogy, but it really is very similar, that a novice baker couldn't just change up the recipe and have it turn out good, but a very experienced baker would be able to change up recipes and make it their own, and it would still taste great. So understanding the sort of science of comedy behind it, I think, is very essential. And then you can be free to really play and really be creative without, the cake not rising or the joke falling flat. So understanding that and understanding the different genres of comedy, because a multicam is vastly different than a single cam in the way that you need to approach it. And a kid's comedy is like a whole other world, and there's all these different things. So there's a reason they said dying is easy, comedy is hard. But just because it's like a whole other thing. And with dramatic acting, you still need to do everything that you would do for dramatic acting. All that work still needs to be there, and then you add the comedic technique on top. So it's just more work, but once you know it, then there's not as many actors who are excelling at comedy, right? Mm-hmm. There's a lot more dramatic actors than actors who can do both drama and comedy. And so it's something that for those of you who love comedy, who've always like wanted to be good at comedy, again, it's like a muscle. It might be something that feels like, oh, there's a lot to learn initially, but then it becomes second nature and everything just clicks.
It was interesting for me because in my BFA program in college, I pretty much only got cast in dramas. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't do comedy that much. I'm like, oh, maybe I'm just not funny. and then when I graduated, everything I got called in for was comedy. Literally everything. And then everything I booked was comedy. So I was like, what is happening? So I started out with like this lack of self-confidence in comedy. Mm-hmm. I took your Find the Funny class and I'm just like, oh, this is amazing because this is so technique based and that's what I love. So I don't know, is there anything else that you could speak to people who think that, to people who love comedy, they're going to find those classes and they're going to have fun, they're going to excel. But what about the people who, really should work on comedy because maybe they don't have that technique? Mm-hmm. Or I also feel like comedy helped me a lot in commercial auditions. Mm-hmm. Because I feel that commercial auditions are closer to comedy than drama, even with like dramatic, like medical commercials, mm-hmm. because there are things you need to hit in the commercial. There are words you need to punch. There are things you can't gloss over, mm-hmm. or else, because those are things that the client is looking for. Yeah. And same thing with comedy. I think one of the things you told me once is, sometimes they don't look at you for, comedy auditions. The writer might be looking away because they're just looking for how it sounds. Mm-hmm. And so those are, honestly, the comedy class helped me with comedy, but it helped me a lot with commercial auditions as well. Mm-hmm. So anyways, getting back to it, what do you have to say for those people who maybe don't have, the comedy, aren't bitten by the comedy bug yet?
Yes, definitely. Well, first of all, it helps you with everything because mm-hmm. I think it helps you with everything, period. But the way that our industry is moving with the type of projects that are getting done in the past, I would say about since Iron Man was a thing, people realize that like the really gritty and intense movies sometimes do better when there's a little bit of humor. Mm. And so there's still some genres that are just dark and heavy and all that stuff. But we, think about all the superhero movies, all those things, like
Deadpool, a lot of it uses like, it's dark, but then they lighten it up with some comedy.
Right, there's a lot of comedy. And even shows like that would be more dramatic. For example, things like Grey's Anatomy, they would still have this like bantering and bickering between the interns and the doctors to create some sort of lightness within all the drama and the mayhem. And so there's it's been a shift in the last, I would say, like 15 years or so to infuse a little bit of comedy in 80% of the projects.
I just finished the most recent season of Sex Education, and like I'll literally go from sobbing to like laughing hysterically.
Right.
Because like they'll, you go through, like you're in the trenches with these characters and then they do something completely funny or it's so relatable that you're just like, oh, okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you can tell those comedic moments are built in.
Yeah. And sometimes it is like the actor can bring that a little bit more, can bring that out a little bit more. But if you really think about those shows, like those moments or those characters that bring that levity sometimes are our favorite characters to watch. And they can make mm-hmm. things like watchable, especially when it's very heavy for very long. And it feels, the world's dark enough as it is.
So true. So true.
So humor has definitely become something that's a lot more ubiquitous than it used to be, where there was like comedy over here and drama over there. So it helps you with other things as well. But my favorite example of somebody who wasn't really into comedy, one of my students, Miyako Hillman, who she took my audition technique class, and then she's like, I struggle with comedy. I love watching it. I wish I was good at it, but it's just like not my thing. I struggle with it. I'm very uncomfortable with it. So she took my Find the Funny class, and she struggled through it, right? She was like, I'm trying, but it's not my thing. And at some point we had a conversation. I was like, you keep thinking you need to be funny in a certain way. You are thinking this is the way to be funny in the scene. And there are endless ways to be funny. And you can have your own version of comedy, your own version of what's funny, because you have humor as a person, bring your own humor to it. And we had this whole conversation, and she had this like breakthrough in the class. And I think less than a year later, she booked a series regular on a multicam sitcom. So,
oh my goodness.
Yeah. So she went from somebody who was like, I really struggle and I'm comfortable with comedy, to now I think they're on their 4th season, and she plays like a mom on a Nickelodeon sitcom. So she's been doing multicam comedy since 2019, just that's her job. So, and she's gotten very, very good at it and finding her own brand of it. And multicam is the most technical one out of all of them. And so finding that balance of technique and still bringing your own version of humor to it instead of trying to think about what they want to see was a winning combination for her. So I have proof that it can work for anybody.
Yes. And speaking on that, I mean, you have clients and you've worked with people from, people come to you literally with one line for an audition.
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah. And like you said, you coach series regulars. And I know you've done on-set coaching for series regulars as well. Yeah. So how do you work with everybody?
Yeah. I mean, it's sort of like the same principles apply to everything in a way. Just slightly adjusted. I do, most of the people I work with have some kind of training. I don't have as many clients that come to me that like, I have never read a scene in my life. Like right. I do work with professional actors who are specifically auditioning for film and TV. Mm-hmm. So usually that comes with a certain level of at least a common language. And then what I focus on is really taking their acting chops and translating them into the audition space, which is its own animal, and making sure that they feel really comfortable in bringing their own unique take to the scene. Yeah, I guess it's not that hard, I guess, to work with everybody as long as there is some sort of that basic language. So as long as you have the basics of acting down, like the things that I don't really, I mean, I can do, but it's just not my bread and butter, is, teaching you how to tap into emotion in the first place, or teaching you how to just connect and respond off of somebody else. Those are usually things that my actors that come to me have already done. They've done scene study classes. They've got some sort of something going on. Mm-hmm. And so I don't need to start from scratch. And that does allow me to be able to work with everybody on any audition, because you could be relatively green professionally, but as long as you've at least had some experience being in theater, doing some scenes, even stuff for fun, people I've now in the generation of TikTok and YouTube and stuff, people who've done like skits for a long time. And so, but they still have some sort of experience with interacting with somebody off of a written word instead of just what comes to your head. So.
Right. And being genuine when you do that. Mm-hmm. So let's recap. What classes do you offer and how? We already said people can reach you on Instagram at Audition Coach Lilach. So where else, what classes do you offer, just to recap, and how people can book?
The classes I offer right now, I've got 3 of them. I've got my script analysis class, which is Script Detective. I've got my comedy class, which is Find the Funny, and this is aimed at auditions specifically. And then my audition technique class, which is Audition Master. So those are the ones and that one really takes a little bit of everything. We do drama, we do comedy, we do all that stuff. And I find the most challenging scenes that I can find, like those
she does
those scenes that you're like, oh no, what do I do? This stumps me. That even because I have some people in those classes that are very experienced and have done a lot of things, and even they're like, oh, I don't know what to do with this. So then I teach them. They're just like, okay, these are the tools, these are the techniques, these are the tips, what you need to, hopefully that's the class that, like, after you take this, hopefully nothing will scare you too much.
Yeah, for me, there's always that moment when I read the script and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to run from inside to outside. I have to stab someone, then I have to fall to the ground. And then there's always that moment of like, shit. And then I'm like, okay, wait.
I have
what
tools
did Lilach
for
teach
this.
you? Wait, I have tools for this. I have tools for this. I have tools for this. And I've had friends come to me and be like, Monique, what the F? Like, what am I supposed to do? And I'm like, okay, wait. We went over this in week, blah, blah, blah. Okay, like, this is what you do.
Monique pulls out her meticulous notes.
I know I have a binder. I have 2 binders. I have a binder for comedy and a binder for audition technique. But yes, yeah, literally, when she says she has an example for it, she absolutely does. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to leave people with? Before they go find you on Instagram?
I guess the last thing we didn't really touch on is mindset. And that's something that, again, around auditions especially, because auditions is where the win or rejection thing comes around versus, when you're in acting class, it doesn't feel quite like that. It's more just working on your craft. Mm-hmm. So auditions bring up a lot of our insecurities and fear of rejection and all that kind of stuff. So I would say, in my experience, mindset is 50% of the battle. You need technique, you need practice, you need all that stuff that we just talked about. But it's really important that you invest and nurture your mental health and your mindset. Mm-hmm. And that's something that I think for me would have saved me so much grief in my journey when I was acting, is understanding some of these mindset things, like understanding that it's a long game, that it's about building that momentum. And it's not about booking this job, but about, like we talk about booking the room or being bookable, right? Mm-hmm. So then the perfectionism doesn't come in quite as much, because I don't need to be perfect. I just need to be bookable and adjustable. And those are things that I can achieve. Those are actionable things that you don't need anybody's permission to do. You don't need to rely on other people's approval to be bookable and adjustable. Those are things you can do fully on your own without any input.
And a way for you to have ownership of something that feels so mm-hmm. out of your control.
Exactly. And just redefining your definition of success as an actor. Yes. And that's important, because anybody who's listening to this that feels like the only success is to book a job, they are in for a world of hurt. And probably won't be able to last in the industry unless they get very, very, very lucky, like winning the lottery lucky. Mm-hmm. But even then, you might have a success. You'd be a series regular on a show, and then that will dry up, and then you'll go through a period of time where you don't work for a while. And I have a lot of clients like that. And if you're still in that mindset of like, if I'm not booking, I am losing, or something is wrong, or I'm failing, then that's just, again, recipe for disaster, because we can't control who books the job. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's all these things that are completely outside of your control.
Yep.
You'd be surprised how many times I've coached somebody and then I watch the episode and the role's not even there. It just got cut. Like mm-hmm. when we didn't know and we were like, but she was so good for this. Why didn't she book it? And, it was never meant to be for anybody.
Right.
And you don't know that. So there's all these things that come across, across the audition process that you have zero control over. So my biggest recommendation on the mindset part is to redefine what success means to you as an actor, from bookings and even callbacks. I mean, callbacks are definitely 100% a win, should be just as big of a win as getting booked, because it kind of means that you did everything that you were supposed to do. But finding a way to define success for yourself in terms that you can control. So for example, if you're still getting called into the same offices, like you mentioned before about getting called into the same show for 5-6 times, mm-hmm. that means that actor is killing it. Like they are doing such a good job if they're getting called in multiple times, because that means that whole office is like, we love them, we love what they do, we trust them. We're just looking for the right role for them. And understanding that makes you feel on top of the world versus feeling like, another audition that I didn't book. It's more like, these people like me. They're calling me back in again. Yeah. I'm going to book that office at some point. And really trying to find that consistency and set the standards for yourself of like, what is success to you in terms of things that you can control, and then celebrate every win, the smallest ones, right? Celebrate getting like some positive feedback from your rep, celebrate the callback and the booking, of course, as well. But celebrate the auditions that just felt good.
Yeah.
Celebrate the moment where something became effortless that used to cause you a lot of stress. Celebrate any moment of growth, because as long as you're growing, as long as you're creating that momentum, the industry, especially for actors, is almost like a set of dominoes. Every audition that you do, every class that you take, every moment of growth, you're setting up a domino. And if you keep going with that mindset, then it's only a matter of time until that momentum reaches a peak and one domino would fall, and then it will be like book, 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 book. And I say this, and I know it sounds fantastical, but I have seen this happen. I call it my domino theory. I have seen this happen so many times for so many people.
I can't wait.
And yeah, and it really is about, and the people who don't get there are usually people who have their focus only on booking, and then they get discouraged, or they get, frustrated and depressed about how things are going. And then that consistency and that energy isn't there anymore. And so that momentum dies off. So as long as we're keeping that positive mindset and that momentum, then it becomes more of a matter of time, more of a when rather than if they work with you.
I like what you said too. I mean, of course, we, celebrate the callbacks, celebrate the bookings, but like you said, celebrate a strong audition. Mm-hmm. I've had some self-tapes, and then my husband is like my reader with me sometimes. And so he'll ask, he's like, hey, what happened to that audition we did on Wednesday? Did you get a callback? I'm like, no, I haven't heard back. And he's like, man, that was really strong. And I'm like, oh, I thought so too. Like, okay, cool. That was a strong audition, So yeah, I've never really celebrated strong auditions before, but yeah, definitely.
It's really good to create a celebration ritual for yourself. And it could be something really, really small. If there's like a treat that you like, and, you do a great audition, and like, I'm going to treat myself to froyo today because I did a great audition, or whatever it is that is sort of the thing that makes you feel like you're celebrating a little bit. Take yourself out for a drink. Or if it's like, oh, money's tight, then it doesn't have to be something that costs money. It could be
your best friend.
Call your best friend. Or one of my favorites that I like to do is like, I'll have a playlist of like kind of really fun, upbeat, joyful songs, and just like blast that in the living room and just like dance around for like a song or two, and just sort of let loose and have that. It just something that is like, this is what I do when I feel good about the work that I've done. And it sort of reinforces that, to know that you're on the right track.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Okay. I've got to create that ritual. I love that. I love the dancing part. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
We're going to have you on again and again and again. So if you want to email us any questions, or just go straight to Lilach, because you can email her directly and message her directly. But we'll definitely have her on again.
Yeah. Instagram is where I live at the moment. And if there's anything you want to know, let me know. And I'm happy to make videos about it and give tips. So yeah.
Thank you, Lilach. Thank you so much.
Hey, that was so much fun. But you know what would be even funner?
What, Jess?
Catching our video updates on patreon.com/oldgirlsentertainment. In addition to our updates, we share what those words you hear on set actually mean, tips on career and production development, and all the fun things. So, join us over on Patreon. And now, go get set.